Hello everyone and welcome to the clash you've all been waiting for. It is once again Magnus Carlsen versus Hikaru Nakamura, and it is truly a thrilling game. It lasts exactly 64 moves as there are that many squares on the chessboard, so I don't know, I thought you guys might want to know that, but even though it's a fairly long game, so much stuff is happening. Mates are being threatened all over the place. The position is now winning for Magnus, now for Hikaru, now, I mean... absolute madness. So let's dive straight into it and see what happened. Magnus has the white pieces and he opens with pawn to h4, which is odd, but there is a rook on h1, so it makes sense. You want to advance that pawn, and Hikaru does the same, just pawn to h5. We have d4 by Magnus, now grabbing the center, and Hikaru plays pawn to b5, which again makes sense. You open up your light square bishop, and at some point you might even threaten a nice checkmate here once you develop the queen. So here pawn to c4, Magnus wants to free up his rook. We have pawn to c5, and now c captures on b5. That's not a c captures on b5, sorry, c captures on b5, c captures on d4, and we have a rook trade. Rook captures, queen captures, and now pawn to b3, opening up the dark square bishop as well. Bishop to b6, Hikaru does the same. Now look at the bishop pair, already fully operational, not something you will see on move 6 in regular chess. Knight to f3, and now we have queen to b7, and already Hikaru with incredible pressure towards Magnus's king. If this knight now moves, queen captures and g2 will just be checkmate. So you have to be very careful. Pawn to a4 by Magnus, and now as the knight cannot move, just pawn to e5. Hikaru grabs the full center. Pawn to e3, of course, Magnus wants to challenge this. D captures on e3, knight captures, and now you have to decide whether you want to capture here. Usually, you might consider this, but it's such a beautiful bishop pair, you don't really want to capture this. So you want to defend your e5 pawn with a move like d6, or knight to g6, or how Hikaru does it with pawn to f6. And okay, we have pawn to b4 by Magnus, now having a5 in mind. Knight to e6, and now bishop to b3. Makes sense as now this diagonal opened up, so maybe d6 was slightly better, not allowing Magnus such pressure against the black king. Knight to c7, and now we have knight to f5, and already the position explodes. Look at this, knight to e8, Hikaru adds a defender here to the g7 pawn, and now knight to e7, check by Magnus, king to f7, and now Magnus is winning. Imagine that, only move 14. Feel free to pause the video and win this position for Magnus while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on seeing really far away and deep into the position, as this is not an easy one to see. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight to c6. That's the move. That's the move that wins the game. Incredible as it is. Magnus did not find it, so really congratulations to all of you who did. Really just a spectacular move. Point is now that you don't really have a move. What do you play? If you play d captures on c6, which if you don't do this, then the queen is coming to f5, then the knight captures on e5, then the black is just dead. So d captures on c6, now you still play queen to f5, and now look at this, what do you play? If knight to c7 to try and keep an eye on this knight, just knight captures on e5 with check, and once the king moves, just b captures on c6, now attacks the queen. Now if you go here, knight d7 check, picks up the queen, so you have to go here. Now just pawn to a5, you win the bishop, and there's nothing to be done here. And on the other hand, after queen f5, if you play something like queen e7, if you try to defend this way, then you even have knight captures on e5 check. Now again, if you go here, then knight to g6 check will win the queen, so you have to go here, and that's even worse. Then bishop captures on e6 comes with check, so you could go here. I mean, there's nothing. So that was in the position. However, after king to f7, Magnus did not find knight to c6. He played knight to g6. He attacked Hikaru's rook, but now just rook to h6, and Hikaru is now perfectly fine. queen to f5, and now even knight to d. Of course, you cannot capture. If you capture on g6, then of course knight captures on e5 check, picks up the rook, and again Magnus is winning. So after queen f5, knight to d6 now attacks the queen, and now knight g captures on e5 with check. Very important. It seems like you should play this knight captures to leave this knight on such an active outpost, but after king e8, now your queen is hanging, and also the knight here is hanging, so you're just gonna lose. So Magnus plays the correct knight. Knight g captures on e5 with check, king to e8, and now we have queen to d3. This is how he saves the position. Now, if you capture on e5, then Magnus will capture on d6. So knight to e4, and now Magnus just castles kingside. I'm sure you forgot that was a possibility. F captures on e5, we have bishop captures on e5, and now rook to g6. Hikaru brings the rook into the attack, and if you count the pieces, you will see that Magnus has 3 minor pieces and Hikaru has 4 minor pieces. So Hikaru has an extra piece Magnus sacrificed for the attack. Now let's see where the attack is. Pawn to a5 challenges the bishop, bishop to c7, and now pawn to a6 challenges the queen, queen to b6, and now bishop to d5. So what do you play here? Of course, the knight is hanging. You have to capture on d5. Bishop captures on d5. Queen captures. And now we have knight to f6, attacking the white queen. Queen to a8 with check. And now we have king to e7. And now just rook to e1, aligning the rook nicely with the king on the e file. And Hikaru plays rook to g4. Very nicely done, goes after the pawn here, but also a much more active square for the rook. And now what can Magnus do here? He plays bishop captures on c7, queen captures, and now knight to e5, attacking the rook on g4. And he also has very nice control of the back rank. Also, if the rook captures on b4, then maybe knight to g6 check could be an idea. Even though rook captures on b4 is precise here, it's you have to calculate a lot. If rook captures on b4, then knight to g6 check. And, well, it's just, what do you play? If you play king to f7, then knight back to e5 check, so of course you have to go back, so you have to realize you have to go to d6, and already you feel a bit unpleasant, even though you are surviving here. After all, you are up a piece, you will survive this. But that's a lot to see in rapid chess, and, I mean, you are playing against Magnus, so maybe just don't do that just yet. So queen to c3, Hikaru goes for the other best move, that is attacking the knight on e5 and also the rook on e1. So king to f1, and now this very nice queen captures on b4. Again, rook captures on b4 is better, but he just doesn't want to calculate all of this knight g6 madness going with the king to d6. So queen captures on b4, and now Magnus just plays knight captures on g4. Knight captures, and now Magnus has to figure out how to play this. He does have a rook against 2 knights, but his king is a bit vulnerable, and if he wants, he can claim a draw here right away. It's not clear how, but rook captures on e6 will allow that. After d captures, queen captures on a7, you have 2 connected pass pawns for a knight, and as long as you control f2, you will not get checkmated. So that will be sufficient material for a draw. But after knight captures on g4, queen captures on a7 was played by Magnus right away. And now knight to h2 with check. Maybe he missed this, maybe he didn't. It's hard to say. So the thing is, you cannot go to e2. If you try to save your rook, you're not going to be able to save it. Just queen b5 check, and now king to d2, knight to f1 with check, and now you will have to give up the rook. Otherwise, if you go king to c3 or something, you're just going to get destroyed. Queen to c4 check, king to b2, and now the queen will connect with the rook, and that's just it. So instead, after knight h2 check, king to g1 by Magnus. Now comes queen captures on e1, king captures on h2, and now queen to e5 with check. Very important to grab the b pawn, not allow both of the pawns to start marching forward. g3 and queen captures on b5, and you have this position where Magnus is up a pawn, and it's a beautiful past a6 pawn, so only 2 moves for it to become a queen, but Hikaru is up a knight. So can Hikaru win this? Queen to b7. Magnus offers a queen trade, and of course you cannot accept this. If you accept, then the pawn will become a queen. That's unstoppable. So after queen b7, we have queen to c5. Of course he declines it, and he goes for the f2 pawn. And now Magnus should play a7 and just allow the capture of the pawn. Now whether he saw this or not, maybe he decided that he just didn't want to draw, because if you allow this, it's just a draw. King h1, and the two pawns are preventing the knight from entering the game and attempting some sort of a checkmating attack. So you will now either get a queen, or black will have to settle for a nice perpetual check here. But okay, Magnus goes king to g1, he defends the f2 pawn instead, and now queen to c1 check by Hikaru, king h2, queen to c7, now offering a queen trade, queen to b4 check, and now king to e8. And this is, both players are in time trouble. This is move 38. And it's ridiculous that king to d8 is winning here. King to d8 because the king needs to be as close as possible to the passed pawn. You need to have the king to d8, then you can go to c8 to b8 in the future. But after king to e8, that one square will be a bit too much. Now Magnus goes queen to b5, and now what can Hikaru do? He should again continue with king to d8. Queen to b5 didn't really do all that much. He's going after the h5 pawn, but it doesn't really matter. King to d8 is just winning for Hikaru. But okay, pawn to g6, we have queen to d3. Now Magnus really wants to grab that kingside pawn. And now look at this, queen to b6. He gives up the g6 pawn with check, so he is able to start marching with the king to the queen side, which he could have done right from the start. But okay, queen captures on g6, queen to d8, king to d8, and now king to g1, not allowing queen captures on f2, queen captures on a6, and now queen captures on h5. So now Magnus lost the passed a pawn, but he does have 3 connected passed pawns on the king side. So queen a1 check, we have king to g2, and now queen to d4. Will Hikaru be able to do something with the knight? We'll see. Queen to f5 now. Magnus centralizes the queen. Well, Hikaru really centralized the queen. Magnus takes the second best square. King to e7, and now pawn to h5. Magnus starts advancing his other passed pawn towards the queening square. Queen to g7, and now you again have to be very careful. If you play a weird move, let's say you play something like this, then knight to f4 check just picks up the queen, so you have to be careful. As long as that king is in the reach of your knight, you cannot relax. So pawn to f4, we have pawn to d5. Hikaru also starts marching his pawn forward with the same idea. Of course, if Magnus captures, Hikaru just wins the queen. The master of puzzle rush, wastes no time pushing that pawn. King to h3, and now pawn to d4. We have queen to d5, and now queen to f6, and Magnus starts bringing the king deeper into the position. King to g4. We have king to f8, and now Magnus is down only to 15 seconds on the clock. Hikaru has something below a minute. King to f3, king to g7, king to e4, and now king to h6, putting pressure on that h5 pawn. We have king to d3, and now queen to e7. Queen to e5, and now queen to a3 with check. We have king to e2, and now Hikaru has to be very careful. Look at those pawns controlling g5 and g6. If Hikaru does a weird move, let's say play something like queen b3, he defends his knight, there goes queen to h8 checkmate. So Hikaru wasn't very happy about this. He went queen to b2 check, king f3, queen to b7 check, king to g4, and now queen to c8, threatening all sorts of nasty discoveries. So Magnus just goes back, king f3, queen to c6 check, king to g4, and now king to h7. Preventing that queen to h8 move. So queen f5 check, king to h8 with queen to f6 check, king to g8, and now queen to g6 with check. We have king h8, queen to f6 check, king g8, queen to g6, and king to h8. It doesn't matter if you go to f8, it's still a draw, only you allow Magnus to start advancing his passed pawn. But here, king to h8, and he was in this position on move 64 as advertised that the game ended in a draw, as there is no way for either side to make progress. Very nicely done. Hikaru was winning. First Magnus was winning, then Hikaru was winning, and in the end they share half a point each, and you don't really have a way of continuing this. If I mean, you could still try something like pawn to h6, but I mean, you could also lose the game. And with both players now being very low on time, they agreed that okay, let's stop playing this game immediately, and we're gonna play another one. But this one is a draw. Yeah, so very nicely done by both of them. I enjoyed it immensely. Hope you guys did as well. And I mean, it's very nice. I know that this chess 960 business is too much for some of you, but it's only 5 days a year, so you know it does add a certain amount of refreshment to the world of chess. And then after that, we are continuing with the usual stuff until next year. Unless they will have like a lot of Fischer random tournaments, but I doubt it. At least not maybe next year. At some point, I'm sure there will be. So yeah, that's the game. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're gonna discuss the standings after we show at least one more game. But for those of you who are interested, Nodirbek Abdusattorov absolutely crushed the field. He has 9.5 out of 10. I mean that guy is just incredible. I mean, whoever will face him in the semifinals, better come ready. But yeah, that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to wish a very happy birthday to Stjorn, and I would like to thank Jeff Morrow, Johan Achlev, Nathan Hesley, and Jack Obeid for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of this fine event until it finishes. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.